sort of spin the entire envelope around. So rotate tool and click on the band. I'm going to hold down shift to quantize it. You know, if the object wasn't, you know, nicely rotated at 90, well, you'd have to manually rotate to line things up. Now what I'll do, and I think it's actually around the wrong way as well, I'll just spin it around again. So click on it and then shift key, just spin it around 180 like that, and then I'll do a fit to object. What I need to do is get that envelope, you know, that sort of circular shape, to match the curvature of my object. But I'll start by doing a fit to object, come to a side view, F3. Okay, so I'm just going to move it down. So I need to get the curvature of the envelope to match the curvature there as close as I possibly can. I won't be able to get it exact, but I can get it closer than what it is now. So scale tool. So it's important when you're scaling the envelope that you do it in, you know, with the axis enabled, because otherwise if you don't, all you do is sort of you move the texture rather than scaling the envelope. So just move that up and just sort of on top there like that, and just sort of play around between the scale tool and the move tool. Get it as close as I can, maybe just out a wee bit more, down a bit, and that'll do. You know, you can spend a little bit more time on yourself, but that's not bad. Okay, and now what I'll do, I'll just actually come out of both of those, back to model tool, and click on the tag, and I'm just going to play around just with the settings here just to get it how I want. So let's just move it. I don't need tiling, I don't want it tiling, so I'll turn off tiling and just move it up. I probably need to, yeah, I need to come there. So a bit of mucking around to actually get it right. This sticker was off one of my Lego models, and the part was similar shape to this, not the same, so it doesn't fit perfectly, but I just want to sort of scale it up to fit a wee bit better than what it is. So I haven't UV mapped this object. Okay, and just up there, and maybe just a little bit bigger there, and just back up. All right, I'll turn on both. I'll just put it on front, and we're pretty much good to go. So I'll just turn on anti-aliasing on the best. Let's do a render, see what we get. Okay, looking pretty good. Do a render like that. Okay, and just underneath, just check that by doing a render. So that's actually coming through. So what I need to do to stop that is, did I do a render or just render? Just check, yeah it is. Okay, I'll select just those top polygons and then restrict it. Okay, so polygon mode, and just select all of those top ones. Okay, set selection. Okay, click my material, drag and drop the selection tag into the field there like that. Back to model tool mode, render the top. That's okay. Come underneath. Okay, yeah, see there? So I did have to use a selection tag. So hopefully that's useful. So the important thing there was just scaling and matching the envelope of the texture to the object. Okay, so we'll move on and have a look at another projection mode. Okay, so to finish up, I'm going to have a look at the frontal mapping mode. Now there are other mapping modes and some of them are quite complex and you may not use them very often or ever at all, so I'm not going to bother going through those. I've covered the main ones, flat and cylindrical. You might use the spherical one sometimes, but I think I've shown you enough with the flat and cylindrical that you'd be able to figure out spherical. But I did just want to briefly show you frontal because that can be quite handy. So we'll just make a little sort of quick scene. So I'm going to create a background object and I'm going to load an image onto the background. So double click to create a new material. Now this one, I'm going to load it in the luminance channel. Okay, so I'll disable color, disable specular, but I will enable luminance. Okay, click on that. Doesn't really matter for the background object, but I'm going to use the same material applied to an object, and that needs to be done in the luminance channel. So click open, and it's this background, or it's sort of a photograph I took of my local town square. Apply that to the background object. So there's the clock tower in the town that I live in. Now what we can do is we can put in sort of a cube to match the clock tower and apply the same image onto the cube, and it'll look like it's sort of part of the scene. You'll see why in a moment. So let's just create a cube, and we sort of need to rotate it around and orientate it the best that I can to match the clock tower. And I might need to sort of resize it a bit, and I'm doing this really quick, by the way. Okay, and I'll move it back, and I'll probably need to make it taller. Okay, and back and over. So I'm doing it real quick. If you're interested in this sort of thing, check out, I think it was our release 14 review where I went through camera mapping, because you can do a similar sort of thing, and you can actually set up your Cinema 4D camera to have the same, you know, focal length and everything as the actual camera that took the photograph. So something like that. So I'm going to apply that image onto the cube. So I'll just drag and drop it onto the cube. Okay. Obviously that doesn't look right, so I'm going to change the projection mode to frontal. So it projects it from a frontal, from my sort of point of view, and there it is gone. If we do a render, can't really see it, but what you can do, which is really clever, is you can now animate something going behind it. You know, I could have a spaceship flying behind the clock tower and it will get hidden as though it's actually, you know, I've got a three-dimensional clock tower in my scene. So if I just, I don't know, I'll create a sphere and just make it a wee bit smaller, and all I've basically got to do is drag it back. I'll go to a top view, F2, drag it behind here, something like that. You know, obviously you'd want to spend a bit more time on it than what I'm doing, so I can sort of have it here, and I'll record a keyframe. Okay, a 0, come over here to 90, and then see it's gone behind the clock tower, and I'll just drag it down over here, you know, there, record a keyframe. So push play, let's see what happens. Okay, so push play, and how cool is that? Goes behind the clock tower. So that was using frontal mapping. I haven't gone into, you know, texture mode there at all, but I thought I'd just throw that in because it can be very, very useful